This is the SF Productions Podcast Network.
Will you survive the warped wall?
From the Pop Culture Bunker, I'm Mindy.
And I'm Mark. You can check out our audio podcast, How I Got My Wife to Read Comics, on iTunes or on our website, sfpodcastnetwork.com. This is the second part of our two-part episode about Japanese cult shows. So let's go back to the action. Okay. So let's go on to Ninja Warrior.
Yes.
Also known as Sasuke in Japan. It's a sports competition that's based on this near impossible obstacle course.
Yes, and there's different stages.
Right.
And so this way you can string it out for a really long time.
And they do. It started in 1997 on the Tokyo Broadcasting System. It's actually a spin-off of another series called Muscle Ranking, which aired on the G4 network as Unbeatable Banzuki. And we actually watched a few of those, and it was like an indoor obstacle course type thing.
Yeah.
So this is all outdoors. That's the big thing about it.
Yes.
And the whole idea is, do you have the qualities to be a ninja?
Yes.
The strength and the balance and the stealth.
Yes.
Can you do these things and be a ninja?
Yes.
And the show involves 100 competitors, most of whom are ordinary people.
Right.
Yeah, they're not like celebrities.
Yes, ordinary people in the idea that they have regular jobs,
yes,
like shoe salesmen,
right,
or,
Right. There are play-by-play announcers and sideline reporters.
Yes, just like we saw in Iron Chef. You
right.
have the play-by-play and the...
And there's always a human interest story about each competitor before they race.
Well, I'm going to say about each competitor they show, because sometimes they don't show all of the
you don't see everybody, no question.
Yeah.
There are, as you mentioned, multiple rounds that eliminate the also-rans, and it's all based on, have you completed the course, and if so, how quickly can you do it?
Yeah, and I think that on the Japanese version, you always had to finish the previous stage before you could go on. I don't think that...
Yeah, now they're doing a thing where if you've made it far enough and you're fast enough, then you can move on.
Yeah. But the obstacles they have tend to change from time to time, and they're very, very difficult.
Absolutely.
There's, balancing on wobbly things while you're walking, or,
And each round is more difficult than the last. And then the final round at Mount Moriyama, where it's this huge metal tower, and generally you have to climb a pole or a rope to reach the top before the buzzer goes off.
Yes, and it's a very, very tall
and only a
structure.
handful of people have ever made it all the way through, like 3, I think. So, some of the obstacles. Quintuple step.
That usually starts off the first stage of each competition.
Right. And the idea is you jump across 4 platforms that are angled 45 degrees toward the center, and you're in this water pit. Then you have to jump from one to the next and then jump to a platform at the end without touching the water.
Any time you touch any part of your body or your clothes touches the water, you're out.
You're out. Then we have rolling log, where you straddle and cling to a log that's turning before...
Like going down a little ramp and turning.
Yeah, and then basically it begins its roll down this 15-degree decline. And so you have to hold on and make it to the other end without falling off.
Again, you'd fall into a pit of water.
Right. There's the jump hang, where you leap forward off a trampoline to grasp the underside of a declining cargo net, and then either climb over it or underneath it, and again, you can't touch the water that's under this obstacle. And then, probably one of the most famous ones in the whole competition, the warped wall, where you scale a concave quarter pipe by running up and grabbing the top of the wall and then
pulling yourself
up and then you have to hit a button, and that ends the round.
Yes.
And this one in particular, if you don't have the right technique, you have no chance of getting it.
Yes.
And they always talk about, what's the right technique of doing this, and you have to really commit to it because you're literally having to grab something that's it's not just straight up, it's like behind you almost.
Yes. And the interesting thing is that a lot of competitors in Japan, and if you watch the American show now, are building these obstacles in their houses, their yards, or whatever, and including these warped walls.
Right. There's also the jumping spider, where you jump from a trampoline into a shaft of parallel walls that then you have to traverse by wedging yourself in between and crawling through them.
Yes.
There's the salmon ladder, where you grab a bar resting on 2 parallel walls.
If you have watched Arrow, you've
seen this. The walls have 7 sets of notches for the bar to rest on, with the gap between the last 2 sets larger than the previous ones. And you have to literally like, doop, doop, doop. And then they actually have a 2-sided salmon ladder where you have to go up and then you have to go back down on the other side.
Yeah.
There's the wall lift, where you lift 3 heavy walls and cross under them to advance.
Yep.
You have the body prop, where you traverse an expanse of 2 walls that are 5 meters long, and you have to, with your hands on one side and your feet on the other, and you have to just kind of move your way across.
You have to be kind of tall to do that. Short people don't do well on this show.
No, exactly. There's the pipe slider, where you hang from a pipe, and by undulating your body, you move the pipe across a track to the other side. And there's a lot of stuff where you're hanging throughout all
Yes. And they always talk about your arms have to be at 90-degree angles.
Right. There have been 30 series of Suzuki so far, with the last is going to air this July, so they're still doing them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the competitors in Japan have become regulars on the show, and quasi-celebs, at least in the world of Ninja Warrior.
Yes, and that's why I said ordinary people at the beginning, because a lot of these people are no longer really ordinary people.
Right. There's Professor Ninja Warrior. There's the Japanese Clark Kent. There's Mr. Octopus, who basically brings an octopus with him. That's his bit. There's the world's toughest transsexual. And then the Iron Fireman. So they realized, in order to get the audience interested, they got to have gimmicks for these people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you have to wonder, are some of these people really doing any of these things? Like, well, would you mind bringing an octopus in?
Yeah, we really need you to have a gimmick. If you want to get on again, you need a gimmick.
So, of course, as the show aired, gained this cult following, it moved over to the U.S. via G4 Network, which, of course, later became the Esquire Network. That started in 2009. U.S. contestants were sent over to the Japanese show to compete, and then the inevitable American Ninja Warrior in 2012, which is actually a summer hit on NBC.
Yes.
And the qualifying rounds of that are still being aired on the Esquire Network. Host Matt Eisman and Akbar Baja Bamila. I think that's right. Probably nowhere near it.
I can't remember. It's a really long name with lots of consonants.
Yes. And the show runs competitions nationwide. They in different cities around the country. People are now, as you mentioned, building their own courses in their backyards.
And they're even gyms now that they're starting, that are American Ninja Warrior training gyms.
Yeah.
How is that going to last? And really, a lot of the people in this are into parkour.
Right.
And that's, I think, really what they're training at those gyms is parkour.
Yeah, and now you see a lot more athletes now than just regular people. You see U.S. Olympians are getting involved.
There's always, on the American one, there's always a Harlem Globetrotter.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's other people that are trying to work their gimmicks up. Mr. NBC.
Yeah.
Or Captain NBC.
Captain NBC.
Yeah.
Some woman who she was wearing a tutu and all this, and a bird outfit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun. After the initial qualifying rounds, which is the first one, then they have city finals, and then they all go to Las Vegas.
Right.
But it gets more and more serious as it goes on. You don't see the fun people towards the end.
Right.
So really the best ones to watch are the early ones. And you should go watch them right now.
Exactly.
Right after you check out our audio podcast, How I Got My Wife to Read Comics, on iTunes or on our website, sfpodcastnetwork.com. From the Pop Culture Bunker, I'm Mindy.
And I'm Mark. Thanks for watching.